Odessa Whitfield had crossed the same Atlanta intersection every Tuesday for 6 years, blind, trusting a sound she'd memorized in place of sight she no longer had. One Tuesday, that trust nearly cost her everything, until a stranger named Min pulled her back from a truck that never saw her coming. Her granddaughter, Zora, had no room in her life for anything beyond keeping her grandmother safe and the bills paid. Odessa saw what her granddaughter couldn't yet believe, that the man kept coming back for reasons that had nothing to do with guilt. Zora finally let him in. 400 miles away, a rival named Yu Kang-jin had just learned the one thing Min had never let anyone find before, something worth threatening him with. Welcome back. If this is your first time here, parts 1 through 2 are everything you need. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. Now let's get into part 2. Do-hyun had the surveillance mapped within 36 hours, a black sedan that rotated positions every 4 hours on Boulevard, close enough to watch the house without drawing attention from anyone who wasn't already trained to notice patterns most people missed entirely. 2 men, Do-hyun reported, spreading photographs across Taemin's desk. They switch off. Neither one's local. The plates trace back to a rental company out of Charlotte, same city Kang-jin operates out of. They're not doing anything yet. Just watching. Learning her schedule, probably. Which shifts she works, when the old woman's home alone. Taemin studied the photographs with the specific controlled fury of a man who had spent 11 years mastering exactly this kind of threat and had never once had to apply that mastery to something that mattered to him personally. I want them removed from that street, he said, quietly. I don't want a confrontation that tips Kang-jin off, that we've noticed him watching. Removing them tips him off just as fast, Do-hyun said. Maybe faster. If his men disappear from that corner, he'll know we're already responding, which tells him the weakness is confirmed rather than merely suspected. Then what do you suggest? Counter-surveillance, Do-hyun said. Watch them while they watch her. Let Kang-jin think he still has the advantage of surprise, while we make certain nothing actually happens on that street without us knowing about it first. He paused. You're going to have to tell her something, Taemin. Not everything, maybe not yet, but something. A woman doesn't stay safe by accident, when men like Kang-jin's are already circling. She needs to understand there's a reason to be careful, even if she doesn't understand the whole reason yet. Taemin was quiet for a long moment, the specific weight of a decision he'd been avoiding since the night before, settling fully into his chest. I know, he said. I've known since the moment you told me his name. I just don't know how to say it without becoming, in her eyes, exactly the kind of danger she's spent her entire life trying to protect her grandmother from. You don't have a choice about the timeline anymore, Do-hyun said. Kang-jin's men aren't subtle by accident. They want to be noticed, eventually. That's part of the pressure. If she notices the car before you tell her what it means, she'll assume the worst about you specifically, instead of understanding the actual danger comes from outside. I know, Taemin said, something exhausted settling into his expression. I'll tell her tonight, all of it, or at least enough of it that she understands the shape of what she's actually walking into, by staying close to me. And if she decides the shape's too dangerous to walk into at all. Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll have to accept that, he said, but I'm not going to make that decision for her, by hiding the truth until it's too late for her to choose with clear eyes. Do-hyun studied him for a moment longer, something unusually direct entering his own composed expression. 11 years I've worked at your side, he said. I've watched you make considerably colder decisions than this one, and I've never once seen you hesitate the way you're hesitating right now. I want to say something, and I want you to actually hear it instead of filing it away the way you file most personal observations. Say it. Whatever happens with Kang-jin, however this plays out, don't let this be the reason you go back to building the kind of life where nothing matters enough to be a target. Do-hyun said. I've watched that life cost you considerably more than it ever protected. I'd rather see you fight for this one, dangerous as it is, than retreat back into the version of yourself that never had anything worth losing. I don't intend to retreat, Taemin said. Not from this. Not from her. Zora noticed the car first, not consciously, not as a specific threat, just a small wrongness she filed away, the way she filed away most small wrongnesses in a life too busy to investigate every one of them. There's a car that's been parked across the street a lot lately, she mentioned to Taemin, 3 days after Do-hyun's report, the two of them sitting on the porch while Odessa dozed in her chair inside. Different one, sometimes, but always kind of similar. Dark sedan. I probably wouldn't have noticed, except my shift schedule means I'm home at weird hours, and I keep seeing it at times most people aren't usually parked there. Taemin's expression didn't change, though something behind his eyes went carefully still. What times? Early morning, mostly. Sometimes late at night. She studied him, something sharpening in her attention. Why does that matter? You look like it matters. It might, Taemin said, and understood, in the specific pause that followed, that the moment Do-hyun had warned him about had arrived considerably faster than he'd planned for. I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you decide how to feel about it. You're scaring me. I know, he said. I'm sorry for that. I wish I had more time to build up to this the right way. He took a breath, the specific discipline he'd built over 11 years of difficult conversations settling into his voice. The import business is real. Everything I've told you about my work is real, but it's not the whole picture. There's a considerably larger organization underneath it, one that operates in spaces legitimate businesses don't usually operate in. I've spent my entire adult life keeping that part of my life separate from anything I actually cared about, because I understood, better than most people, exactly what it costs the people you love when your enemies find out they exist. Zora sat very still, processing. Are you telling me you're dangerous? I'm telling you my world is dangerous, Taemin said. I've never once let that danger touch anyone who mattered to me, because I never let anyone matter enough to be a target. That changed the moment I pulled your grandmother off that curb. A rival I've spent years keeping at a careful distance has learned about you. He's having you watched. That car you noticed, that's his men, not mine. How dangerous? Zora asked, her voice very quiet now. I need actual words, not careful ones. What could actually happen to us? Taemin considered the question with the specific discipline of a man who had promised himself, walking up to this porch tonight, that he would not soften the truth to make it easier for either of them to hear. In the worst version, he said, someone could try to hurt you, or your grandmother, to send me a message or to pressure me into a decision I wouldn't otherwise make. I don't believe we're at that point yet. Kang Jin is patient. He's been patient for 11 years, waiting for exactly this kind of opening. Patient men rarely move to violence as a first step. They watch, they gather leverage, they wait to see how much fear alone can accomplish before they escalate. That's not especially comforting. I know, Taemin said. I'm not trying to comfort you right now. I'm trying to tell you the truth, because I think you deserve it more than you deserve to feel better in this exact moment. Zora wrapped her arms around herself, the porch suddenly feeling considerably colder than it had 10 minutes earlier. Why didn't you tell me this before? Before I let myself actually feel something for you? Because I didn't know, with any certainty, that this danger existed until 3 days ago, Taemin said. And because, if I'm being fully honest with you, the way I'm asking you to let me be, some part of me was afraid that telling you the whole truth too early would cost me the chance to prove I was worth the risk before you'd even had the chance to decide that for yourself. That's not really fair to me, Zora said. Making that decision on my behalf. You're right, Taemin said. It wasn't fair. I'm telling you now because I don't have the luxury of waiting any longer, not because I've suddenly become braver about the conversation. I'd rather you be angry at me for the delay than in danger because I stayed quiet longer than I already have. He just told her the truth she never expected to hear, sitting on her own porch. Like and subscribe to help us grow so we can create more content like this, if you're already holding your breath for how she reacts. This is where it gets real. Stay close. Zora stood up from the porch swing, putting distance between them, without quite deciding to, the specific reflex of a body processing danger faster than a mind could organize words around it. You let me fall for you, she said, knowing this whole time that it could put my grandmother in danger. That it could put me in danger. I didn't know it would, not with any certainty, until 3 days ago, Taemin said. I've spent 11 years building my life, specifically so this exact scenario couldn't happen. I never once had anyone worth threatening, Zora. That was the entire architecture of how I survived. Nothing mattered enough to be leverage. You're the first thing that's ever mattered enough to change that equation, and I understand if that terrifies you as much as it terrifies me. It does, Zora said. It terrifies me considerably more than you seem to understand. I've spent my whole life trying to keep my grandmother safe. I don't have room in that mission for a man who's made both of us targets just by caring about us. I know, Taemin said. I'm not going to pretend that's not a fair thing to feel, but I need you to understand something else too. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not going to let anything happen to either of you while I have breath left to prevent it. I have resources most threats in this world can't match. I have people watching that car right now, making certain nothing moves without my knowledge first. This isn't a danger I'm running from, it's one I know exactly how to manage. You shouldn't have to manage a danger that only exists because of me, Zora said. The danger exists because of who I am, Taemin said. Not because of you. I'd rather spend the rest of my life managing it than spend a single day pretending you're not worth the risk. That's easy to say sitting on this porch, Zora said. It's a different thing entirely when it's my grandmother's safety on the line, not just my own. She trusted this world enough to let a stranger into her life because I told her it felt safe. I don't know how to look her in the face and tell her that trust might cost her something. Then let me tell her, Taemin said. I owe her that honesty directly, not filtered through you protecting her the way you protect everyone in your life. If she wants to hear it from me, and decide for herself what to do with it, I'd rather give her that respect than let you carry the weight of delivering news that isn't yours to deliver. Zora studied him for a long moment, something in the offer settling some of the anger that had been building in her chest since he'd first mentioned the car. You'd actually do that, sit across from her, and tell her everything. I already intend to, Taemin said. Tonight, if she'll have me. I don't think either of you deserves to spend one more night not understanding exactly what's happening around this house. Odessa's voice carried from inside the house, steady despite having clearly heard enough of the conversation through the open window to understand its shape. Bring that boy inside, she called. This conversation deserves tea, not a porch swing and both of you standing there working yourselves into a state. Odessa listened to the full explanation over tea, her expression unreadable in the specific way of a woman who had learned, across 71 years, to process difficult information without letting her face give away her conclusions too early. You should have told us sooner, she said, once Taemin finished. Not because I'm angry, because a woman my age with my particular limitations deserves to know when there's a reason to be more careful than usual. I can't see a car parked across the street, Mr. O. I need somebody to tell me when the world's gotten more dangerous than it was yesterday. You're right, Taemin said. I should have told you both the moment Do-hyun brought me the report. I was trying to protect you from fear before I'd actually secured your safety. I understand now, that was the wrong order to prioritize things. It was, Odessa agreed, but I appreciate you admitting it plainly instead of dressing it up as something more flattering. She turned her face toward where she judged her granddaughter was sitting. Zora, baby, I need you to hear something, and I need you to actually listen, instead of just waiting for your turn to argue. I'm listening, Grandma. This man just told us the hardest truth he's probably ever told anybody, Odessa said. About himself, about the danger, about exactly what loving you cost him in terms of the careful life he'd built. That's not the behavior of a man hiding something worse. That's the behavior of a man who decided you deserved the whole truth, even knowing it might cost him everything he's spent the last few weeks building with you. She reached for her tea, unhurried. I've been wrong about people before. I told you that already. But I wasn't wrong about him 3 weeks ago, and I'm not wrong about him now. The danger is real. I understand that clearly. But so is he. I'm not asking either of you to pretend this isn't frightening, Taemin said. I'm asking for the chance to prove I can actually keep you both safe, the same way I've kept myself safe for 11 years. I have resources, I have people, I have a considerably better understanding of exactly how men like Kang Jin operate than either of you could reasonably be expected to have. Zora was quiet for a long moment, turning the entire evening over in her mind. The fear, the anger, the specific ache of having something good threatened almost the moment she'd finally let herself trust it. What would it actually look like? She asked, finally. You keeping us safe? Someone posted near the house, discreetly, at all hours, Taemin said. Not obvious enough to alarm the neighbors, but present enough that nothing happens on this street without eyes on it. I'd want to change your routine slightly. Not drastically, just enough to make you a harder pattern to predict. And I want to know your schedule myself, both of your schedules, so I can make certain someone's always aware of exactly where you both are. That sounds like a lot of watching, Zora said, something uneasy entering her voice. It is, Taemin admitted. I understand if that feels invasive, given everything else you're already processing tonight. I'm not asking you to like it. I'm asking you to let it happen anyway, because the alternative is considerably worse than feeling watched by people who are actually on your side. Odessa set down her tea, with the specific deliberate finality of a woman who had heard enough to form her own opinion. I've lived a long time, baby, she said to her granddaughter. I've learned there's a difference between a man who wants to control you and a man who wants to protect you. Control feels like a cage, even when it's dressed up nicely. Protection feels like a fence, something that keeps danger out, not something that keeps you in. What he's describing sounds like a fence to me. How can you tell the difference so quickly? Zora asked. Because he asked, Odessa said simply. A man who wants control doesn't ask permission. He just does it, and expects you to be grateful. This one's sitting at my kitchen table, describing exactly what he wants to do, and why, and waiting to see if we'll let him. That's not the behavior of a man trying to take something from us. That's the behavior of a man trying to earn the right to give us something. Taemin looked at Odessa, with something like gratitude crossing his composed features. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet, Odessa said. Thank me once you've actually kept us safe. Words are cheap, Mr. O. I've heard plenty of good ones in my life from men who didn't follow through, starting with my own late husband on more than one occasion. God rest him. I intend to fully follow through, Taemin said. Every day, for as long as it takes. Her blind grandmother just took his side without hesitation. Like and subscribe to help us grow, so we can create more content like this one. If you're as surprised as Zora is by how fast Odessa forgave him, the danger's about to get closer. Stay close. The answer arrived considerably faster than any of them expected. 3 nights later, when Zora came home from her closing shift at the diner, to find a man she didn't recognize standing at the edge of her driveway, close enough to the house that the porch light caught half his face. Ms. Whitfield, he said, something falsely pleasant in his tone that made every instinct in her body go cold immediately. I wonder if I could have a moment of your time. I don't know you, Zora said, keys already gripped tight in her fist, the specific calculation of distance to the door running automatically through her mind. No, the man agreed, but you know the man who's been spending considerable time at this address. I represent someone who'd like to understand exactly how important you've become to him. I'm told these things are easier to measure once we know how far he's willing to go to keep you safe. Headlights swept across the driveway before Zora could answer, a car she recognized immediately pulling in fast enough to make gravel scatter, Taemin out of the driver's seat almost before it had fully stopped. Leave, Taemin said, his voice carrying a coldness Zora had never once heard from him in 3 weeks of knowing him. Now, tell Kang Jin he's made his point. I received it clearly. He does not need to send anyone near this house again to confirm I understand exactly what's at stake. The man studied Taemin for a long moment, something calculating behind his pleasant expression. I'll relay the message, he said, and retreated toward a car parked half a block down, unhurried in a way that felt, to Zora, considerably more menacing than if he'd run. Taemin crossed to her the moment the car pulled away, checking her over with the specific frantic thoroughness of a man confirming, with his own eyes, that nothing had actually happened. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? I'm fine. Zora said, though her voice shook considerably more than the words suggested. He just talked, that was… Taemin, that was terrifying. I know, he said, pulling her into him, the specific fierce protectiveness in the gesture, telling her everything his careful words during their earlier conversation hadn't quite managed to convey. I'm sorry. I should have had someone posted here already. That's on me, and it won't happen again. Do-hyun arrived within minutes, having tracked the intrusion the moment the man's car left its designated watching position, something grim in his expression as he surveyed the driveway. He's gone, Do-hyun confirmed, followed the same route back toward the interstate. I've got someone tailing at a distance, but I don't expect he'll do anything else tonight. Tonight was the message itself, not the beginning of something more immediate. What do we do now? Zora asked, her voice steadier now, something resolved settling into it, despite the fear still working through her system. Now, Taemin said, we make certain this never happens again, whatever that requires. I'm not asking you to be brave about this alone. I'm asking you to let me be exactly as dangerous, on your behalf, as Kang Jin's counting on me not to be. What does that mean, practically? Zora asked. It means the posted security starts tonight, not tomorrow, Taemin said. It means I stop treating this as a threat I can manage quietly from a distance and start treating it as the war it's actually becoming. Kang Jin just showed his hand by sending a man to your driveway. That's an escalation he wouldn't have made unless he was confident I'd respond exactly the way I just did, which means he's already 3 steps ahead of wherever I thought we were. Do-hyun nodded grimly. He wanted you to come running. He wanted to see how fast, how personally, you'd react. Now he knows. Then we adjust, Taemin said. I'm not walking away from this house, or from either of them, because a man in Charlotte wants to test how far my discipline actually extends. Let him learn exactly how far. Odessa appeared in the doorway then, having navigated her way outside despite the chaos, her cane finding the porch steps with practiced certainty. Is everyone accounted for? She asked, her voice steady despite the specific vulnerability of a blind woman standing in the middle of an unfolding crisis she couldn't see the shape of. Everyone's safe, Grandma, Zora said, crossing to guide her back inside. Nobody's hurt. Good, Odessa said. Then let's get inside before the neighbors start asking questions we don't have good answers for yet. She paused at the threshold, turning her face toward Taemin despite not being able to see him. You held up your end tonight, showing up as fast as you did. Don't let this be the last time you prove that. We're trusting you with considerably more than tea now. Yu Kang-jin received the report from his man the following morning, reading it with the specific patient interest of someone who had learned, across 2 decades, that the first move in any negotiation rarely revealed the whole hand. He came himself, the man said, fast, angry, considerably more protective than the man we studied for the last 11 years, who never let anything provoke a reaction like that. Good, Kang Jin said, something satisfied crossing his composed features. That confirms what the report already told me. Now I know exactly how much pressure it takes to make Oh Tae-min stop thinking like a businessman and start thinking like a man with something to lose. He set the report aside, reaching for his phone. Escalate the timeline. I want to know everything about her routine, her work schedule, the grandmother's medical appointments, every single predictable pattern in that household's life. If he wants to protect them properly, he's going to have to give up considerably more than a single night's sleep to do it. His assistant hesitated at the door. How far do you want this to go? Kang Jin considered the question with the specific unhurried calculation of a man who had already decided the answer and simply enjoyed the theater of appearing to weigh it. Far enough, he said, that Oh Tae-min finally understands what it actually costs, in this business, to let something matter. And the woman? The grandmother? Neither is harmed yet, Kang Jin said. I have no interest in violence for its own sake. Violence is expensive, and it invites retaliation I'm not currently prepared to absorb. What I want is considerably simpler. I want Oh Tae-min distracted, exhausted, spending resources on protection instead of expansion, while I quietly secure the trade routes he's spent years assuming were uncontested. A man managing a crisis at home makes mistakes in his business dealings. I intend to be there, patiently, to capitalize on every single one of those mistakes. That's a considerably longer game than I expected, his assistant said. The longest games are always the ones that win, Kang Jin said. I've watched 3 rivals over the years try to rush Oh Tae-min into a mistake through direct confrontation. All 3 failed, because he's disciplined enough to see a direct threat coming and respond to it cleanly. This isn't a direct threat. This is patience, dressed up as menace, designed to wear him down slowly enough that he never quite identifies the actual moment the real damage occurs. He set his phone down, something satisfied in his expression. Keep watching. Keep reporting. And make certain nothing escalates further without my explicit instruction. I want him afraid of what I might do next, not certain of it. Uncertainty costs a disciplined man considerably more sleep than a confirmed threat ever could. A man just showed up at her driveway in the dark, and Kang Jin's already planning what comes next. Comment if you think Taemin can actually keep them safe, or if this danger's already too far along to stop. Part 3 is coming.